What are you guys doing? Say hey to everybody out there, whoever's here. We got 3 people, I think, in the house. Jamie O says, good evening. Robert's here. I'm here. Let's see what you guys are up to. Tired, been working late. Pumping out shop time, burn the midnight oil. Earl. Let me show you guys what I was doing. Let's see. I'm gonna find it. Did I put a? I'm not sure. I think I started making a video on this. Let's see. Maybe I did. I don't remember. Last week was a blur. Why does it feel like the summer is just going by like so quick? The spring disappeared on us. You know, it's just crazy. I'm not sure what I did with it. Did I do... Maybe I didn't make a folder for it yet. I don't know. I'm talking about, yeah, this guy here. I worked on this guy. This guy. Hold on. I gotta switch over to the other monitor. I'll show you guys. So let's see. So I went through this machine, this nice 5 horsepower 1992 Briggs. Just play a little bit of it real quick. Let me get my headset on. Just gonna skip through it. It was backfired. Oh wait, hold on. I'll just leave that pickup for a minute, but I think I should have the footage of the backfire. I don't remember if I made a separate folder for it. I don't know. Like I said, it last week went by so fast. Yeah, here we go. So I'm just going to skip through this real quick. Sucking fuel. That's always fun. Let's go to the next one real quick. Fuel seems to be okay. Let's take this off. Yep. Blah, 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 blah. Well, let's see if we have another view. We'll take this off. Making my notes. Yeah, there's the date. That's the other thing. We'll get to that later. Hold on. Let me shove this in there. Hold on, I gotta minimize. Let's see. I'll try and run through this. So let's see if you guys know what's wrong. All right, we'll do a few things. All right, hold on. Okay, now let's back up. I think it's the day before. Let's see if this turns it up. So I think I put a plug in it. Fuel is okay. Go back a day. I checked head bolt, checked a whole bunch of things. I don't remember what day was which now. Was it that camera or was it the other camera? Yeah, all right. Let's see what happens. All right, hold on. Let's turn the audio up. And there's a fly right in front of me. Sorry, fellas. There's a Mothra. All right. But she won't start. It's not spark. Not spark. So would it backfire like that? Let's give it some hot shot. Here we go. You guys see that? So,
Okay, so you got a valve problem.
or,
Let's dig into it.
hold on, I want to see if
Nope.
it'll do it again. We gotta find it. Change the plug.
Good. A little bit. Before we put the boot on, let's give it the choke. Let's just do it without any help. Oh, no.
You guys see that? Right out the carburetor. Now we're gonna do it again with the juice. You guys tell me. Yep, you saw that. I think you saw that. Yeah.
Okay, so you got a valve problem.
Maybe. All right, I'm
Let's
coming
dig
back.
into-
Hold on. Let's see. Go back to here. I'll catch up with you fellas. TJ says hi. Bravo says hi. Love the do-rag. I know, I need a blue one for this outfit. What's that on your head? It's a penis cap. Uncle Mark says, hey, everybody from your northern uncle in Canada. Kind of smoky up here right now. Lots of fires away up north. I'm driving and listening as I'm on the road. Nice. Yeah, Mela says, do the dilly dilly. TJ says, hi. Pulls too easy, no compression. No, I checked the compression at like 70 pounds. I think I have that video, but I'm not sure where it is. I don't feel like, continuing to look for it. I took a lot of footage this week. A lot of footage. So everything's all mixed. Plus I had to release a video, and Robert goes, I believe that's the pumping diaphragm. Nope. It backfired literally through the carburetor. TGM says, need that video on how to replace a brake on a lawnmower. Yeah, that's going to be end of year. That's not even on the docket. I'm so busy. Like I said, if you look through some of my older videos on swapping engines and stuff, you'll probably find it. But I don't have anything handy right now that has a Briggs motor that I can go grab and do a swap on. Everything I've got going on and have been going on does not involve anything like that. So that might not be coming for a long time. I was thinking about what I could do that on or something, and it just really isn't anything. I'd have to grab a motor and find the time for it. And then I'd have to make the video, and then I have to put the video together, and then I have to publish it. And that's just not on the cards. That's a whole lot of time for something. You better off bringing it here, and I'll make you do it. Yeah, I just don't see that happening. Like I said, I've gone through motors where I've done swaps. I don't know if I've released all the footage, but I have footage on where I do motor swaps. I put a different motor on, and sometimes I've even gone so far as to show how you take a push prime Briggs, like 190cc, and convert it to an automatic choke. And sometimes I've even, replaced the brake system. But the brake system generally doesn't go bad, so it's pretty rare for anybody to ever have to do that. It's really simple. Like, I gave TJ a brake to replace the braking system on his engine. You just have to take it apart and look at it, take pictures, and take it apart. I would recommend taking the hat off, the pull start assembly, fan cover and everything. Take that off, make sure it's all clean in there, and then you remove the cable, the ignition cable, the kill cable, and then it's just 2 bolts. It's like 2, maybe 3 bolts or something, and you'll see it. You may have to fuss with the spring a little bit. I mean, there are some techniques too. You can take coat hanger or wire, and you pull the bail back, tie it back with a clamp or something, and before you remove the cable, you wire back the brake on the spring and hold it back out of the way. And you're compressing it. And then you wire it with a coat hanger or something. And then you can release the engine bail. And what I would do is I would actually pull the little hook out of the engine bail up on the handle, and then you go down by the engine and you pull that little hook of the cable off and remove the cable, and then you can remove that whole piece and you reverse the process. Basically, it's very easy. I also have I have a video out there on how to there's actually a video on how to replace the ignition cable on a Black Craftsman lawnmower, and I think it's the same mower, or it's a similar mower to the mower I just did for Christy. It's a Black Craftsman. Go look for that, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see how to deal with the cable, and you'll see the bolts. You'll see everything you need to see. You just have to go look for it. There's stuff there already on my channel. But no, I'm not. I can't afford to kill a day right now, and it would be more than a day, because it's a day. It's time to shoot it, time to get everything together to do it, and then I have to edit it and then publish it and go through all the trouble of the publishing. So that's several days. I just can't do that right now. This is prime time. This is the prime time of the year. Everybody's banging on my door, and they have all this work that I have to make money on, and I have to get done. And the past couple of weeks have just been brutal when it comes to that. I just got done working on the lathe a little while ago, cut the lawn, got rained on, trying to get out here to go to live, and the dog is stuck outside in the rain because he can't get up the steps in the rain because he's too old. Got to get him up. So, yeah, it's just too many things going on for that. But definitely look for that. Look for that video. Henry says, hey, Henry. He goes, hi, I can't read tonight. I'm shot. Arch, hello. How are you, mate? Doing good. I'm just shot. Melhouse goes, Arch is doing the Joe Walsh impression. Yeah, he always wear the welding hat. Yeah, he's a cool dude. The Joe, man. Just had some pizza. Finished up late. I'll show you guys a little bit more of some other stuff in a minute. Also been working on the lathe in between other things. And burning the midnight oil on that. I'm up to 3 o'clock in the morning. And I pushed too hard. I don't remember what day it is. I missed a doctor's appointment with my neurologist. I didn't realize it was like at the end of the month. I think it was the 21st. It was just supposed to go online and have like one of those Zoom meetings. I've been so busy. He's like every day, cranking out. I think contractor Mike is doing pretty good now, although somehow or other he says, "Can you fix a weld back on or a muffler that came off of a Echo backpack blower and weld it back on?" I'm like, "What are you guys?" I'm thinking to myself, "Yeah, probably. I'd have to see it. I don't know. What did you break? I don't know how do you break that? I've never heard of it. They're so rough with everything." And then I got to fix the cable on his Cub Cadet. I got a little project for Mikey to do. 2 of them. It's too bad, too, because that one is a little motor quickie job that I got to do on a motor for a nice lawnmower. But it's a Tecumseh motor. If it was a Briggs motor, I would make that video for TJ. But it's not. It's a Tecumseh. Imagine. Big Mike says, shit, and they charge for missed part. Yeah, they do. I forgot all about it because I don't even know what day it is. And I've been working so hard that the other night, my sugars dropped to 41 in the middle of the night. This happens. That's bad. And I had to eat a lot of sugar and honey. I think it was yesterday, all day yesterday. You get that like nervous, unsettled feeling. I have no energy. You kind of just, usually at 40, your brain stops and you have a heart attack. That's usually what happens. Usually you go into comas. Like they can't believe it doesn't happen to me. But for some reason or other, I wake up and I have the presence of mind and I keep sugar by my night table. But you have to stay up. I think I went back to bed for a little while, but you stay up for several hours. So if it's at 2:30 in the morning, you're up. You're not going to go to work. It's not going to happen. I can't work a regular job because of this kind of shit. You're up until you get stabilized, and then you eat, And then you have to lay back down. And when you wake up, it's all a mess. And the rest of the day, you're not right. And then I went and did like another 2:30 or whatever, late night. I don't know how I'm able to do it. Like, I don't know where I'm getting the energy from. And cut the lawn and all the other shit. It's actually hot in here. Let me take this thing off, too. I'll show you guys the next thing in a minute. But that's from burning up all of that energy. And then my sugars go high, but it doesn't take me very much insulin. And it's weird, too, because it happened and I didn't really inject that much insulin. It was nowhere near. If I had injected what I used to inject, I would be dead. Like, that's how much. It's like half of what I used to take. I still need insulin, but I definitely do not need as much. Which is a good sign, but I don't know how people deal with this. That's why you often hear about people dying from diabetes. Other than that, it kills your kidneys and everything else. But I think that the majority of people probably, if they don't get the mix right, be my guess. So I'm just shot tonight. Like I said, it was cutting the lawn, had the Honda out. That was nice. Let me find let me find the next thing I want to show you real quick. Mike says to me, Big Mike, he said he found another lathe just like the one he got me, but it's in a little bit better shape. And it's in Connecticut. $250. Like, you can't get a lot for these older machines because they're so old. He's like, you should fix yours up and then sell it and then get a better one and just keep doing that until you get to the one you want. You could do that, but that's a lot of work. And you're not really sure what you're getting. You could even buy an expensive one, and then when you take it apart, you'll find something serious wrong with it. And I said to him, what tends to be is that you have to have a lathe to fix a lathe. And I've run into that, and I'm actually running into that right now because the spindle on this is a mess, and so are the bearing saddles. And you really need a boring machine or at least another lathe to spin this spindle so that you could properly polish it. And that's the thing, is that you kind of need one of these machines because it's a precision machine to fix another precision machine. So you kind of get caught in that. And also the other thing is too, is if I ever do get like a better machine, maybe someday in the future, you would want to have an old machine like what I got around. Because if you wanted to weld on it and grind on it, let's say you want to weld a big ass nut on something, right? You're making something and you need to weld a nut on this thing into this thing. You can chuck it up between the two centers and line everything up and make it, onto a shaft and make it nice and straight. And then you could weld it and grind it. And you wouldn't really want to do that on your, even like a used $3,000 higher end precision machine. You really wouldn't do that. You would want an older victim like this thing. So anybody have any ideas why it's popping back, right? What would make that car? Remember now, it's an axial, horizontal motor. It's popping back through the carburetor. Hit me up with some fresh ideas, and then I'll let you know what I found. Let's see. So TJ sounds good. Robert says Archie's doing the joke. Yeah. Jamie goes, workers beat the snot out of it. Yeah, they do. They really do. And they throw their equipment around. They do. Sometimes I feel like they sabotage shit. Like, it's my paranoia, maybe. I don't know. But it just seems like, how do you beat the crap out? I know they're doing lawn after thing. And it's like a blur after a while. And it's like, excuse me, hurry up and get it done, and then they're throwing it in the truck. And he doesn't have things well organized. Like I told you, he doesn't tie things down. In his truck, he doesn't have any racks. He screwed some things into the wall of the truck, with like sheetrock screws and stuff. Like, that's just not going to stay. He's kind of handy, but he's not a mechanic. Some of us are handy, and then you can start to move towards being a mechanic as time goes on. And some of us are just handy. And they don't understand. Like, he made a kind of like a rack out of some lawnmower parts, right, for the top of his truck. and for the rakes and what have you, but it's still not fastened well. So, you could be going down that road and you'll get behind a guy like that and shit come flying off and hit your your vehicle and everything. And now, oh my God, it's so bad. Because they just don't know mechanical attachments. He doesn't understand inertia and mass. You start going down the road, moving this object, things in motion tend to stay in motion. Big Mike says he's handy. No, Mike, you're not handy. Right? You're a mechanic. Right? Big Mike's a roofer, among other things. He has to work with top-end stuff, learns all that, been doing it for years. He's worked with the old shit. He's got all kinds of tools. He'll make stuff work, modify, improvise. Like that's not handy. Handy is where you start, and then you start by chasing parts out and stuff, and that's your next step. And then once you learn more about that, then you can actually get into studying to be a mechanic and learning some of the principles and rules of things and all the different parts and pieces and the kinds of tools and when to use them. And then also, you get into the metal, right? What kind of metal is it? How much force can it take? That's another key thing too. Like how much force can you put on something? See, now I can start learning a little bit more about metal in a different way, because if you want to, well, I already drill and tap and do all of that. I've done some light machining work, but if you really want to make something, you're going to have to, I've already been studying it. It's like, what cutting tool do you use? What RPM are you going to spin at? I don't even know what RPM this thing spins at. I don't know yet. I won't get that. I know it's about 12 speeds. It can actually be more than 12 speeds. It's 3 cones. I'll show you here. It's got 3 cones. So that's 3 gears. But I'll show you this pick. Let's see here. Here's what it looked like. Let me just cue it up. I started taking it apart.
Make sure I was zoomed out all the way.
Hold on. You're going to hear me. I got to go back. Right. Oh, you see the cones? No, hold on. It's got to go further back. Hold on. That's different. So nobody said anything. Well, let's see. You were lucky. No, I'm not really lucky. It's something else. Because it happens a lot, David. It happens a lot. There's something else going on. There's some luck in it. But I also have the good Lord watching over me. Wait, hold on. Big Mike said something. All right. Just don't tighten it till it gets loose again. I know, right? That's what I always tell people. They're like, how tight should I make this? I said, I'll say tighten it until just before it gets loose again. Robert goes, cam timing off for some reason. Had one plastic cam gear skip a tooth. Had to drop the sump to fix it. Yeah. Destroyed the flyweights in the Governor too. Wow. That's a good one, Johnny. Jamie O says, Arch, says, my guys were paid by the hour. Have GPS on the trucks. GPS show them driving 85 in a 55. Why? I know, right? And so then they hit the brakes and make a turn and all of your gear goes flying, right? I don't get it. Robert goes, I believe that the exhaust valve is not seated properly or the intake valve is not seated properly. That are my thoughts. All right, so that's good. Let's walk through that, all right? So that's both of you guys are onto something. So first I'll take Robert. So if an exhaust valve doesn't seat, now I got about 50, 60, 70, I forget what it was. It was, decent compression. That's another segment. That's another little, recording, I think from the day before. Hold on. Wait, Tony goes, that shirt looks awesome. Thanks, Tony. Tony set me up with this shirt. Yeah, it's too bad, Tony. Like, TJ. It's TJ. That's at the Tecumseh Motor outside. I'm like, oh, if it was at Briggs, I'd make the video right now. I got to take care of this for Mikey, though. So when you think about an exhaust valve, right, so the compression is good. So I think after that, I measured the compression. And the compression is good. So if the valves aren't seating right, you're going to lose compression. But the compression was pretty good. Briggs says 40 is minimum. You know, that's like your throwaway line. It was much higher than that. And it was in a range where it said to me if the ACR, if it had one, I don't know, it probably does, it would be working because it was in that range. And again, I'm tired, I don't remember, but I remember looking at the compression. I showed it to the camera and I'm like, well, compression's not bad. So maybe it's not valves, because if the valves were really leaky, then your compression would be a lot lower. And if it were an exhaust valve, it would not pop back through the carburetor. So that rules out the exhaust valve. So compression is in a good range, and the exhaust valve is not a problem because the compression's in a good range, and exhaust valve would not make the carburetor pop back. An intake valve might. So if it's a valve issue, it's not that bad, but it would pop back through the intake. But that says most likely it's not an intake valve. It's a timing issue. If it was running and you saw fuel coming out of the carburetor and pressure coming out, a pressure wave, and it was popping and spitting while it was running out of the carburetor, that would be, if it was running, that would be an intake valve and probably an exhaust valve too. That's where, okay? It means the valve is not seating right, which could mean that it recessed down into, you know, so you got the valve seat here and there's the head of the valve. From it pounding for years on end, it pushes the valve seat down. And that's called recession. And so as the valve seat recedes, the valve comes down lower and hits the cam lifter and runs out of clearance. You know, you can take the valve out a lot of times, and if you want, you can lap or regrind the seat and the valve, but you got to cut some material off of the tip of the valve to get into the clearance window that spec, you know, the spec says, and that will stop that. So it's not that, because we don't know it's that, because it's not running, it won't run. So I sent him some text messages, which he didn't answer, which is odd. I'm like, it could be this, it could be that, it could be this. I'm like, I want to know what your feeling is on it, because I have to keep going into the motor deeper. And if I get deeper into the motor and I tell you what's wrong with it, you may not want to fix it because it might be too much money. And just so you know, I'm not going to want to put it together again. I'm not going to take the head off and I take the carburetor and the gas tank because of the kind of, you know, carburetor it has on it to get to the valve cover. I'm like, once I get that far and tell you what's wrong with it, if it has like those problems or you even have to go in deeper, I'm not putting the thing back together again. That's not going to happen, right? You know, not for $25 quick diagnostic fee. You know. He didn't get back to me. So like the next morning, because I was thinking about it, because I went to bed and I think while I'm sleeping, I'm like, take the flywheel off. And I had said to him, I wrote to him the night before, I'm like, I don't usually say this, but because it's a pulley driven motor, it's an axial or horizontal motor driving a pulley. They don't usually shear the flywheel key. This is what you would see on a lawnmower engine because somebody hit something like a stump or a brick or a big rock and it broke the key, and the key, you know, the flywheel spun, and it will either rip the cord out of your hand, which it kind of almost did, but it wasn't that bad, and it'll pop back. It won't run. And if it runs, it'd be really bad, but generally it'd pop back. I'm like, that's what it behaves like. And I said, it could be that. So I got up the next morning. I don't know why he didn't answer me, but whatever. I'm like, let me just take that off. That's no big deal. Go back in, or everything is nice and clean. We'll take a peek in there. And then if the flywheel key is not broken, that means that there's something out, like Johnny said, right? Going back to Johnny. So that means if the flywheel key is not sheared, then let's go back to Johnny. Cam timing off for some reason. I had one plastic cam gear, skip a tooth, had to drop the sump to fix it, destroyed the flyweights in the governor too. Right? So I thought to myself, I'll tell him that. Basically, that's probably something like that, or with the valves, go in deeper. And I wrote to him and said, you're probably not going to fix it, honestly. It's a 1992. It's not super vintage or anything. They're good motors. I mean, it was clean. I didn't clean it like that. That's how it came. So I pulled the flywheel off, and sure enough, right, as soon as I pulled the nut off, you know, the starter mechanism assembly on those things, right? They get the ball bearings and everything. So that's this. Let me show you. Let's go find it. Let's take it to this. Let me find it. All right, here we go. Let's move you over here. I'll just run through it. There's flywheel, flywheel, flywheel. Let's see, where is it? It's mixed in with everything else. Ooh, here we go. All right, let me cue it up. Let's see. Desktop audio. All right.
I don't want to move the cameras too much. Normally I would.
Am I putting it on or taking it off? Yeah.
You gotta lock it
Taking
up.
it off. I don't have the tool for it, fellas, so I got to jimmy it.
Too big.
Hold
We
on.
can also, there's a couple of ways to
Let's
do.
cue it up. All right, I'll skip through it a little.
What the hell did? I need to hit it.
Yeah, let's just bang it. Let's
hitting
bang it.
in this direction.
Watch your fingers. Oh, there it goes.
I think I got it.
All right, let's take it off.
Now you don't. Oh,
Oh. Hold on.
all right. Let's take a peek. Let me get in here.
Overhead camera coming up. Or something.
Uh-oh.
Look, look.
She had the key.
Look at it.
Did they even put a key, fellas?
Now watch. Somebody was in here,
Yeah. Key shared.
and
Let me get you in on the other camera.
I don't know if I mentioned it right here.
So, this is flat.
There's no
See.
C's.
A little bit of cleaner on all.
Yeah, I mentioned it
This'll
there.
run. Let's bring it out
Hold
and
on.
throw a little bit of.
There's no C's all over it. And I tried to explain to the fella. Now, this I think is his friends or whatever. That's the story I got. You know, we don't know if the stories are true. There's no C's all over the shaft. Now, I often say this whenever I pull flywheels off and stuff. That Honda says in their assembly manual, even in their education series, they don't want you to even put oil between those shafts, right? The shaft and the taper of the flywheel. Wipe it clean. Most of the stuff I get is rusted. In fact, and it's jammed and screwed up, right? And I usually often clean the flywheels out with a little cartridge roll. And sometimes I replace the flywheel because I have an inventory of flywheels. Because when you spin the key, it can damage the flywheel. The aluminum flywheels, a lot of the Briggs, they have a steel bushing in there because the flywheel's aluminum. Not all of them, but it's thin and it can get mashed up. The key itself, the slot, can get beat up. The shoulders will break and bend, and you got to have it dead in line. Even a little bit cocked, a few degrees, it cannot run right. So I'll often say, I'll throw that out. If it's bad, I'll throw it out. I'll just get another flywheel. But I put my tranny sauce on, which is thinned out transmission fluid, and I clean it with usually a wire wheel, whatever, and I get everything nice. I put a little bit on there, I sweeten up the seal, and then I wipe it. Both surfaces, I wipe it with a rag, and it just has the lightest coating. And you can see there's still a little staining and whatever, because now these older Briggs motors and such, they're older and it's different than the Honda. But Honda says don't put anything. This thing was loaded up with no C's. Well, he goes, how can that happen? I said, because the taper, it's on a taper. The taper will not engage. You've got the no C's is in the way of the taper, and it's a heavy cast flywheel, and all it takes is a bunch of jiggling around, and that flywheel will start to moving because you haven't locked the taper. And that nut was on tight. And it'll shear the key. Well, that must have been the other guy. Oh, yeah. It's the other guy, fella. The other guy, right? So you guys were close. I was surprised. I was like, well, I'll take it off because it's easy enough to do. And like I said, it will give me enough information to say, I have to go deeper. Let me stop. What do you want to do? Because I have other shit to do. Okay. You know, I wasn't even asking for much on this thing. So I went over a whole bunch of things that made it run sweet. Wait for the video. It'll be out at some point in the near future. It's one of my next quickie videos to put out there. Unfortunately, TJ, there's no break or anything on it, right? It doesn't have that. Let me catch up with you guys. He probably goes, the only other thing is how the flywheel key is looking. Yep, so we got to that. Congrats to Robert's Diagnostic. Yeah, Robert's doing good. Both of you guys. Cast aluminum flywheel, yeah. This one's a cast steel, so cast iron. So the weight of it, right? Because it's heavier than a cast aluminum. Because, you know, that's what you want on motors that pulley driven, what have you. I have another flywheel. I have this motor. Well, actually, no. This motor has the cam gear drive. The other motor I have doesn't have it. And the reason why I kind of stole parts from it is because it's got a little tiny shaft on it. It's only useful in like a very limited application. So I'm like, parts, I can make money, which I already did. So this thing's all set up. He's like, oh, I have a little weed whacker that you can fix for me if you want. I haven't answered him yet. I'm like, why don't you come and pick this thing up and pay me first? Then we'll talk about your weed whacker. I don't really fix them generally, but I'll take a look at weed whackers for customers that are customers. But like walk-ins, no, I don't do that anymore. So yeah, good congrats on you, both of you. I was like, wow. I'm like, yeah, you know, maybe, you got to say maybe that's an easy thing. I'll go look at it. We'll see. Then I'll know more. So it's not going to take that much more time for me to pull everything apart and take a good look at it. And then I'll have a better idea. So it worked out. Sometimes it's good to stop because at the point where I saw that it was backfiring and everything, it's sometimes it's good to stop and let the customer know, you know, you don't want to keep touching it. Because if it's mine, when I buy a lot of this stuff, I get it from Mikey, I find it, whatever, I buy it. It's mine. I can do it how I want. It's my time, it's my inventory, it's my parts, so that's different. But when it belongs to somebody else, you know, you don't want to just go I'm taking stuff apart. Because I've had people go, well, aren't you going to put it back together again? No, it's not. No, you're going to get parts back. It's garbage. So one of the fellas said, for those of you that might have seen my worst machines on the planet, so I have like the Poland Wild thing and another Poland saw, and I call them the worst machines on the planet, right? And they're really just garbage. If you got them new and you took care of it, you did great, because back in the day, they were inexpensive. They're like twice the price now, and they're not worth that. And back in the day, they were, what, $1.50, whatever they were. Some of those machines were really inexpensive. So plastic strips out. So guy hits me up and he goes, you got any ideas? My neighbor dropped off a Paul and chainsaw and the blade is coming off and the screw bosses are broken. It's plastic. It's like at least Echo put inserts, like brass, you know, colored inserts. I don't know if they're brass. They could just be brass colored steel or something. But I said to him, no, throw it out. You know, we have any ideas? They said, yeah. My idea, throw it out. It's a piece of junk. You know, the blade bosses are broken. I don't know what to tell you. You could try epoxy or something. You know, throw it out. You know, go buy another one. Go set it on fire and make a YouTube video. Yeah. Just set it on fire. Yeah. Set it on fire. Yeah, I've tried with those things. Like I said, they keep them in good shape. If it's in really good shape and the carburetor gets jammed up, they're easy. It's easy to get the carburetor off. But the problem again is that while you're working on it, you know, if you take the screws off the side cover to get the pull starter to clean all the cack out, a lot of times I've went to put it back and the screws strip, and I'm sticking. Sometimes I put red Loctite in there. You can use. One guy complained, you can't use red Loctite or Loctite on plastic. Yes, you can. You can on that saw because it's a piece of crap. You can use crazy glue, right? Cyanoacrylate. In fact, I just got some from my brother this past winter, and it's got the separate container for the powder. So you put the powder in, then you put the liquid in, then you put the screw in. Done, right? But you don't want to do that, and then you got to go back in there for some reason. You're like, ah, shit. It's disposo. If you can get it apart and back together again, stick tie wraps, I was sticking bread ties in some of these machines because there's a little piece of wire with the plastic and you might get a little bit more grip. I mean, I literally have gotten them together and be like, oh shit, I got to go back in there one more time. Something's not right. And I go back in there one more time, fix the whatever it is, and go to put the screw back one more time. And I'm like, nope, that is the last time. It's not, it's stripped now. Just because you put the screw in and out. Not because you did anything bad. It's just because it's crap. So I told him to throw it out. One of the other guys said, he goes, I see a lot of fanboy comments. Yeah, these people that are like fanboys. Yeah, it wasn't, for the buck, right? If you want an extra machine, an extra saw, and you have firewood and stuff, and you want to delimb and do stuff like that, especially if you take care of it, and as an extra emergency saw, or to let your neighbor borrow. Now, I wouldn't let your neighbor borrow, because if you drop it, you'll break it. It doesn't like being dropped either. Meanwhile, today again, I was using my still, which is still working. Okay. After all, bench shaft, right? I'm looking at that today. I was out on the lawn. I'm like, you really should probably fix that shaft. It is bent. Because you don't have to fix a bent shaft on a, string trimmer. It's bent. It's got a really long reach shaft and it's bent. Right? I didn't bend it. That's how I got it. It was at the junkyard. I think it even got ran over. It's fine, right? You just got to fix it. It's a different machine. Those are expensive, so you get what you pay for, Robert goes, it's mine. It's mine. Oh, mine. Damn it. Congrats. Yeah. So good fun. That was a cool one. That's a nice little motor too. Oh, wait. Big Mike goes, that's for going around corners. Yeah, when you need to do the reach around. I remember when I first got this place, we were on our way out here from the old neighborhood, and somebody threw out a weed whacker. And it had an engine on it, like a 2-stroke, and it had the handle up here. The pole came down, and the motor was down there, and the whacker assembly was down on the bottom. And I'm looking at this thing, and I went to use it, and I went to start it, and for some reason or other, it despooled. I was wearing shorts. It despooled and just bludgeoned my legs right here. I threw the fucking thing on the ground, right? I didn't even want to throw it out. My wife at the time, I'm like, just get me wet towels, right? Put wet towels on. I'm like, oh my God, I've been bludgeoned. Who invented this? I didn't even realize that it was like that bad. Well, I realized after. There's Brett. Yo ho ho, how's it going, folks? Brett's hanging out. He's hanging out. Let me just show Big Mike. I want to show Big Mike how bad the damage was. Let me see if I can find it on the lathe. I'll just find out. What time is it? Where are we? It's raining out, fellas. Like I said, I managed to get most of my property done, but not all of it. Where is the other? I still have more to do. I want to clean up the back section. I skipped out on weed whacking and mowing certain areas because it was just so busy. And now I was looking at it today, especially now that it's raining. Like if it rains, it's supposed to rain for the next couple of days. I'm like, it's going to be bad now. It's really going to be hot. But just in those areas, though. So it's not terrible. Well, let me kill that. Where are we? You see, what's Brett doing? Brett says he just got in from an evening walk. Cats are running around, all four of them, chasing each other now. They walk and such. They don't often come out of their little room in the front, though. They like the safety, I think, in there. I think that's the thing they like. He goes, there's my like, and here's my dilly dilly. He hits the like button. Thank you. Everybody hit the like button. Brett hits the like button and goes, dilly dilly. Yeah, I got to play that again. Let's see. Just going to scroll through this real quick, but I don't remember where everything is now. I'm so shocked. Yeah, I took this apart. I wonder where the video part is. I think I already took it off.
All right, fellas, so another update.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to do
Watch,
a quick
Mike.
report. So I got Brave last night. Watched a whole bunch of videos. There's only a whole bunch. That's it.
Yeah.
Not that many on this Seneca. But a couple of people have pulled these caps off. And I got Brave. This one's not great. It's not terrible.
This thing is so
rough.
dirty.
But this one's bad.
Oh, God, yeah.
I've seen them like that. They get like that.
Oh,
You
it's
guys
so
see- look at that
scored.
Score. All right, what we're going to do...
All right, deal with that later. Very scored.
All right. Pretty grimy. This side's not
It's
as
bad.
They don't use bearings. They just use the
Yeah, that's the
these
problem.
saddles.
It's not replaceable.
So we'll get all this sort of white.
Clean it up. I can't tell you how many times I clean this thing. It is so filthy. Starting to get a little cleaner.
Yeah, I'll flip it in a minute.
For those who don't
When I
know,
had
this
it
is the
drained,
headstock. Those are the bearing saddles.
Yeah, teeth are cleaned out. I don't. There was some.
Still cleaning.
Either swarf or.
Let's see. And then let me go to this and show Mike what I did. What I did. Come this way. I have to start somewhere. Maybe here? Hold on, wrong monitor.
All right, I'm coming.
I'm going to scroll through quick. A little cleaner.
But we need to get that out.
Ah, yuck.
A little bit of a bit. I want to
Next.
make sure I poke through all of these passages.
I don't think there's anything there. All right, still cleaning. Deburring, delousing. Grinding. Oh my God, was it bad. It's 100 years of garbage.
Yeah, that's good.
More cleaning, different bits,
Can happen to
polishing bits, grinding bits. Getting this literally casting flash that gets stuck, it falls off, it falls into areas that are very dangerous. This is how it gets ruined. Next. Starting to look good. Uh-oh, falling over. All right, now we're going to get to finishing that up. Let's see. Get all the garbage out of the way.
So this gets belt, so you get like a direct on, and but it's clean.
Let's see, I washed it. That's the other job. Now we're getting to, I think I did something different. I'm measuring it.
I measured these boards.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to hone it.
Here we go. Nope.
We'll break home.
But down. We could store it all, disappear there.
All right. Get
The other
rid of
camera.
any burrs or anything holding in the way. That's actually how it's starting to look now. Still see a lot. I can't do anything about the scores. They are what they are.
If we come.
And then I polished it.
All right, I'm packing it in. I'll try and
See how
change
deep those
a little
scores
bit
are?
of the,
It's really ruined. in a lot of
Maybe the
ways.
gain or
But they
something.
do get like this, unfortunately.
These are going to be pressed in, and they're going to.
They don't run very fast, the spindles. Maybe
So good.
the newest one now I'm using
Really, I ran the
stones.
tool in last bit because this is a better macro on the better.
See, now
camera.
it's starting to get
what
more
I can
polished.
Do is wind up get on here, especially with
Then I polished it one more time with something. I forget what it was.
we'll
see.
get a little
Now you're going to see it.
liquid out of there
polished.
too.
Now it's getting polished.
Let me figure out how.
And I only removed like a tenth
Go
or
into
so.
this one first.
Here we go. Now I'm going to polish it with the Scotch Brite.
Yeah, that could be bigger too.
I made it bigger. That's what she said. And that's what it looks like polished.
Bull gear.
So, and I measured it with my
This is the
inside
first thing
mic.
is done at chamfer, and
And now I got to work on the spindle itself.
you're not really a little bit.
So I
tired.
measured it all
I can feel it.
There's the tool.
We're very close.
inside.
As I move it around and
telescopic
tug
gauge.
on it and pull it through. Part of what it's doing is it's actually hitting.
At least it'll have less friction because
together.
those little
It's a
ribs
suction.
and
It
cuts,
wouldn't stay
whatever,
like that.
it
You
will
need
lock
something a little
up when
bit
you
more
go to
durable.
put pressure on it. And I got mixed up some custom
hammer.
paint
I got wanted
because I wanted the color of the rust, kind of like the as gray cast with a little bit of rust on it.
Much, but still get it to be. It's like a gun.
And here I am getting ready to paint it. I think
Go over the. All right, and so
I cleared the
very
shaft
long day.
and the
So I'm out
gears.
for a little while. I want to cut that piece out. This would get darker anyway with 8.
Let's see.
Probably just a
That's how
touch
close I
darker,
am in color.
But this would get darker anyway with
But I changed the
I'm gonna
color a
work
little bit.
underneath
It's kind of like an olive.
ear cleaned up. Pretty
It's hard
good.
to see because the sodium
It's very
light is
close.
on.
Anyhow,
I'm not sure how I'm
Right
going
on.
to do the video yet. I'll get the inside
On the
painted.
this in there. You know, so we'll be
Got all that painted in there.
echo. I just shirt.
We'll
Let
paint
me
it
go
there. Finish painting the top.
Let's do it. Using it.
Some of this is dupe because of the way my recording sets up, it makes its own
Should probably
backup.
look at. You know, the clear is thin.
There you go.
It can always
Getting
be
there.
reapplied. One thing clean, and I have the rest of the machine to do.
Let's see. I think this is, yeah, because some of this is
Doesn't sound
backup
bad.
files. It's identical, but they're labeled
Interesting
differently.
mechanism.
There's the red. There's the red handles now.
It's the next day, but it's kind of dark. And start looking do. So I'll be right.
Yeah, it's a duplicate.
Always where the fun begins. So.
Yeah, the duplicates. I didn't delete them yet. I haven't finished my
Yeah,
backups yet. Let's see, what does Ken says? Big
Now,
Mike, hold
this
on.
is where we.
I'll get to them in a minute. I'm almost
Some of
done.
these points
See, a
probably
little
don't
clear
need to
on the
do all the
shafts and the
time.
gears. And that's
Not sure
what it
what
looks
this
like.
hole
Now I got to
does.
find. They're
This is
cross drilled,
another-
so there's all these screw holes. So to drill for the ports for the lubrication, I'm trying to find what fits these screws. What didn't have all the screws in it, so I'm trying to fit in whatever. It's weird. It's like a fine thread. One of my worries about old machines like this is a little bit before like SAE and the Society of Automotive Engineers and stuff. I mean, they had standards, but they weren't like now. And so there's some fine threads and then there's some coarse threads. And I'm worried about the tapers too because I don't know enough. So I'm just making sure the way surfaces
Keeping it
are flat and clean and no burrs.
Go a little bit over
Burrs
here
are
as
the
well.
thing you're going to find a lot. I used some Big Mike gave me some rail
It might need
oil,
a
which is a
gasket.
lot like whey oil. It's thick and sticky, and I'm getting it into the gears. Like I said, there's the polish on the bearing surfaces.
Uh,
I finished
what I do
polishing
need-
them.
There's a couple of things.
So
I
now I'm
do-
putting the rail oil on. And I
Put
got
paint
it all
on.
in the shafts. I got the
cap's
lightweight
done.
oil.
This
I
is
got a
definitely leaking.
1540
With the
diesel
hose because
oil, and then I got the rail
spindle,
oil.
Still need to do the mold.
And I'm sorry for the dupes, fellas.
Not ready to. We'll get it on everything.
All right, closed up.
Let's go get
It runs well. It's smooth. It should be fine. I think this thing maybe
Get you
will
in.
make fit. Oh, there's the crank. The crank is kind of beat. But I already started polishing it. But this is what happens.
She's bad.
Yeah. Oh, it's just so disheartening. It can be fixed, but you need another machine to do it.
Just because. Look at it. But dirt in from
But
the
we can polish it. Yeah, that looks
Let's go
good.
get the.
So that's polished. All right, that's the first polish.
Up.
And I had measured it. Our oil clearances are still good. So it's not.
See here, it's already.
It's not like an automotive crankshaft. That's the other side. That's
we
the
wanna be
small
careful of that.
journal. I didn't polish that yet. So you can actually see it here. But you can see on the left it's polished and on the right it's not. So I'm going to put a little bit more of a polish on it and mic it and call it. And then I can give a determined number as to where I am. I think that's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same.
Right here.
It's the same file. Yeah, and that's something else. All right, so let's can that and let me come back to you guys. And I want to see what Ken said. See what Ken and Big Mike says. Let's see. Ken goes, nice paint, Arch. Do you have an assembly manual? No, I don't. There's no manuals or anything. And here's the other thing. I have all the gears, Ken. The speed gears, speed change gears. But and I do have the faceplate for the headstock. I can't tell you what travel speed or whatever. I know how to kind of figure it out. I am going to need some kind of attack, but I do have everything in that regard. So, but there's no covers on it or whatever. It's just gears hanging out. I don't have the assembly manual. Well, I'll figure that out in the future. I have the stuff. It will make threads, and I can adjust this lead screw, but I'm gonna have to do some math and stuff. Geez, that's a lot of time. Yeah, it's a lot of time. Yeah, I don't have the money for a VFD. I'm going to make the existing system work. I think that's back here. So a VFD and a VRO is what I want. Let me see. I'll give you a little bit view. Somebody made this whole back section, which is really amazing because when you look at some of the other contraptions that people made, hold on, that came with it originally.
All right, just another.
Although the one that Big Mike just showed me today had a really nice motor section on it. But that's another time. Let's see here. Somebody made
look
this.
at the mechanism. See?
Somebody made this.
It's supported like
half
this. It's not
inch,
bad.
three-quarter.
I'll run a tool
So
in there.
I
and in
made
there
a
we'll get
pin.
the
It was
burrs off.
missing
We'll
a
get
pin.
over there, kind of.
So I made the pin.
Clean up in here a little.
Hold on.
Well, more wire wheeling and set.
Started cleaning it.
So it's like back and
Let's
forth.
see
Eventually,
it's at night. There it is. I made that pin.
In my
It didn't
own way.
have one. It had
Yeah,
a bolt
it's
in
getting
it. It was
shadowy in
slopping
here.
around. It wouldn't get the belt tight.
it's the tappy. I beveled the one end.
So it's not
So it'll
100%.
drive through.
I'm working on that while I'm doing other
And I'm
things.
just going to adjust it to like half inch on
And then
either
I'll take it
side,
off.
which is about there. I'll get the set screw if I have one.
I found one.
All right, that's enough.
I also
for today.
bought some,
Let's
but
just
this
take a
is
look.
an interesting contraption. So there's also these two pulleys down here that are different sizes. So I estimate it might have, well, it would have 12. It would have 12 gears. All right, it has 3 cones, 2 speeds, because it has on the head that I was showing you. It's got that lever, which gives you back gears
All right, so all
or
this is
free
moving
spinning,
good.
to the
right,
belt
it's
drive
dry
to the
because
motor.
I've been
So you have
cleaning it.
direct belt or
And
back
this is
gears.
dry. I might hit this one more time.
And then with 2 speeds
like I
from
did
the
over
motor,
here.
you've
It's
got
nice. They have
a
to
whole
be
nother
washed,
range of gears.
because they still have like an oil.
It's getting
film.
cleaner.
So I figured I'm not going to keep going. It's getting too.
Anyway,
late.
let me
Too
come
tired.
back.
Sun.
So, but to work on the back, Mike gave me a hand assembling it, and Mike's Big Mike, right? I'm little Arch now these days with a broken back, and I remember trying to put that thing together and hang a bolt. I'm going to set up my engine hoist, clear out the garage, and I also have the overhead because this thing needs to come apart again. And when I go to put it together, I can't I can't muscle it and try to put a bolt in. It's just, I'm going to hurt myself, especially if I'm doing it at 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm tired after a full day. So I'm like, all right, let's clear the garage, set up the engine hoist. This is heavy shit. If you drop it, you're going to get hurt. And if it's cast, it's going to break. So that'll come in the future. And then once I make it run and check the rest of its clearances and see what kind of backlash I have and what can it do, if it's worth it, then I'll move forward. Now, the other thing that happened too is this broke. That's the only thing that's really broken on it is this. I think I have it here somewhere. Yeah, here it is. And I think I have the fix for it. So this has a compound lathe, compound saddle and cross slide. And the cross slide is the tool mount. And it's all in pieces? Yeah. Well, there's one extra piece there. There's one extra piece that shouldn't be there.
And getting stuff cleaned up.
And so I took it apart. I managed to get it apart and see it's broken. And they tried to bolt it together.
Put these Allens in.
And that's what holds the tool. And I don't have the tool holder either. I have one, but it's the wrong one. So I took it to the next step. See that? That's part of the cross slide, the lower half, right, with the dovetail. That's flat, and this hole here is what mounts to the apron or whatever the hell they call it. Like I said, I'm tired. It mounts to the top of the apron or the I can't think of it. There's another name for it. So that's all flat and everything. So I bought a cross slide vise for a small lathe with the tool bit holder on top of it. And all I have to do is mount it to this or make a sacrificial sort of piece of steel that can dovetail into these ways here. And then I can, if I need to remake it later on, that will be fine. Yeah, the carriage, yeah. It's carriage. It's the saddle. They're like saddlebags. It's not really even a carriage. It has another name. They're like saddlebags. Saddles, I think is what they just call them. Yeah. But it's an entire carriage assembly. So that way I can keep the new vise flat. I'll probably make a dovetail piece for here that slides in. There I can put my screw holes in that if I want to make a better one later on when I have more tools to do a better job. But then I can at least get a tool system on it. And eventually I'll do a more modern quick change as well. And I'll be able to locate it because it's got this nice... it's like a bayonet mount, and this screw tightens it. And I don't want to lose that. And of course, eventually I'll come across one of these vices. I mean, I don't know how many of these things or what size, they used or whatever. If they're, we don't know. We don't really know what fits. You could be, all it takes is to be off a little bit and it doesn't work. It's not the right size. So I don't know. But I'll make something for that later on. But I have a solution for now. It'll be here sometime next week. And I just keep these old parts around for whatever. And, I'll get it together. And then I'll see what RPM it makes and how true it runs. And then I'll go from there. And like I was saying, like on the camera when I was showing the math and measuring what the work I was doing, I'm like, you would think that by putting a hone in, you would ruin it. Well, first of all, it's already ruined. Secondly, I was only removing tenths. I was polishing. I'm not boring. I'm polishing. And I ran it for 20 seconds at a time, 10, 15 seconds, right? Measuring, checking. You're not, a boring operation to bore something like that out in multiple steps is like, it's like a half a day job, right? Leaving the thing spin. Even honing, when you bring it to like a sun and hone machine or whatever, it takes a long time. That thing will run up and down there for quite a while, and it counts its revolutions and its strokes based on time as well. So it'll run in there in your cylinder for quite a while before, you lose 1,000. Because you're also working with finer grits and what have you. And that's what I tried to do, is keep it really fine. So it'll probably run fine. The problem is with all those grooves and everything is it gets like caught. Like imagine sticking this pencil and hitting your fingernail. And when the machine is turning and you drive your tailstock in with a bit, especially if you're driving your tailstock in and tightening and trying to drive it in, the spindle will catch one of those little grooves, and because it's got something that kind of falls into it, because it might have a little stripey or something. It could be a burr or whatever. I saw some burrs in there, and the spindle will lock up and the belts will spin. Even a tool, if you put too much pressure on the cutting tool, it might lock up. So if you smooth all that out and you're not spinning it very fast and there's no real lash, it will run nice and smooth without any friction, and it won't lock up as long as you don't have a lot of movement. Now, in some of the newer machines of the 40s or whatever, I want to say even 30s to early 40, they started putting like shims in. They're like a composite lead and copper. And you could make your own, and then you can crush the caps down and get a clearance and lock it all in. But I don't know how fast those things ran. Maybe 1,000 RPMs, maybe. I mean, in the old days, they were cutting it like 400, 500 RPMs. That's less than one of our Briggs motors. I mean, they don't even run as fast as our Briggs motors, you know? So you don't have to worry too much, you know? Yeah, Starlays. Yeah, it's so cool. Would you find the manual? I haven't even had time. Let's see. Ken just put something up. PDF. Nice. Where'd you get that? He said, could you drill a grease fitting in? Yeah, sure. You could do all of that. I can do that. I'm going to have to get this on my computer so I can blow it up. Thanks, Ken. Yeah, I got to read through this. I saw some other information on these guys. What I really need to know is like, because the gears have letters or numbers or something on them. And so once I get through that, some of them are really dirty, some of them are rusty. Nothing other than the vise and the bit of damage to the journals. There's really nothing else wrong with it. The ways are a little bit pitted, you know, people dropping stuff on it, using it as, I don't know what. They screw up. Yeah, could you drill a grease fitting? Yeah. Yeah, you can actually, they have oilers. You guys have seen them. They're on some of the old machines, the little glass bottles, right? And it's got like a dripper in it, and you fill it up with oil, and it will drip oil in over time. There's actually, inside that base section underneath the bearing saddles, there is a pocket inside there, and it's actually an oil well underneath the bearing saddles. And there's this sort of washer-like thing that slops around and runs inside of there, and the crank picks it up and kind of slops around. I bet you it makes noise. And it slap oils, so to speak, as the spindle turns and picks up some of that. And when you fill it, you're supposed to actually fill that, and it will spill out another port and go down into the gears down below for a speed change and reversing and what have you. There's a number of things that I got to go through on this, but all of that is nice. It's all in good shape. All of the gears are fine. There's no nicks or anything on any of the gears. It's used. It's 100 years old. It's 100 years of hardened grease and shit, and I can't begin to tell you how much work it took just to get the grease off the head assembly. Let's see what he's saying. What Ken say? This is Babbitt. Yeah, they even the Babbitt bearings was another model, another run. I don't have the model number yet. No. I know it's a star. You can't read it. There's something on below the ways on the main beam, and I even ran a wire wheel over it. It just started to turn up something. I think that was painted black originally. I think that was black, and I might put it back to black. So after I get through some of these next steps, I want to get the head assembly together, and I want to realign that motor and put the missing hardware in and get it lined up, and then we're going to spin it. Just going to spin the spindle. Not to do anything, but just spin it. Maybe put the chuck on, put the chuck under a little bit of load, see if the belt slip, make sure I can tension it. And if all that is fine, I'm not going to try to spin anything between centers because the carriage doesn't really move or anything. It gets stuck and it's hard to turn the handles. And I'll call that a success. And then it comes back off. And then everything comes off. And then, I'll lift it up. I'll pull the feet off. I'll pull it all apart. I'll go over the ways. I'll clean the stand. I'll clean everything. I'll repaint all of that, and then I'll start putting shit back together. Because just dealing with the carriage, taking that apart is going to be like a week or so of me working on it consistently. At least. Because it's all jet. And then I got to modify it to mount the new vise. So it's a labor of love for sure. But like I was saying to Mike, Big Mike, is that even if you have another nice lathe and you want to weld and grind, if you have another nice lathe and you have a lathe like this is the lathe you use to grind and weld and do stuff like that on. And not that you're going to hurt it or whatever. You can take precautions even on a really expensive lathe, of course. You need a job, you have a job, you got to get it done, you do what you got to do. But there's a lot of stuff that you would do on an older machine. If you had a nice machine, you're like, oh, let's go over on this machine and do that, you know? So it'll be fun. It's fun. I'm having fun with it. And then there's all the tooling that you have to buy and, you need. And then eventually, as I start to acquire, I already started buying some tooling, just a few things, a little bit more modern. That's going to be a ways. I have some stuff already for building engines or whatever and working with machinists and assembly and disassembly and modifications. But next after this is some kind of a milling machine. I don't want like a bridge boring. It's too big. It's just too big. That'll occupy the bulk of my garage if I buy something like that. And it's very expensive. I'd have to pay somebody to move it. I wouldn't want anything like that. I've seen some around here that are going cheap, but they're worn out. No, find something a little bit, I don't need a knee action. If I need something like that, I got to justify it. Then I'm going to want to do work like that. And then that's expensive to deal with, and I don't really have the facilities for that. Get something small. I've seen a few. They're like big, blown, overgrown drill presses, basically, that you can put collets in. And they aren't going to come apart when you try to mill. Although I've seen like some of the new ones that they sell, because people are into like mini lathes and stuff. People have a lot of hard time with the main shaft loosening up, and you can't tram it. You tram it, it goes right out of tram, it loosens up, cracks. I think there's more problems with these Chinese mills than there are with the lathes, the small, lathes and stuff, which makes sense. Because you got something sticking up on an arm like a drill press, and then you're trying to do all these plowing operations and pushing and pulling, and it's different than a lathe. The old American, even some of the I've seen some weirdo mills out there, like combination, and they were built to last. Heavy, expensive. But they're out there, but this stuff gets old, and they usually wear in the areas where people are using them the most, and then they wear that section out, and if you buy it, that section is worn out, and there's only so much you can do with it because it's worn out, and there's really no fix for it because it's worn, and nobody really fixes that stuff. There's really nobody around to fix it, and most people are like, just buy a new one. I mean, there are people that you can send it to, but that's going to be a lot of money for a machine that probably isn't worth it. So it can be hard, the used market for precision tooling like that. It's very difficult. Yeah. You can wind up with a big, expensive, heavy, gigantic boat anchor in your shop or in your garage that you can't move. That doesn't really do what you want it to do, Throw it out! Call the wrecker. Let me see what you guys are doing. Hold on, I gotta close all this shit out. It's too much open. Too many screens. All right, how to get you over here again? How do you get here? Oh, I hear the rain. Yeah, compound rest. Yeah, hold on, let me back up. Your Robert goes, that looks like aluminum transfer when an engine is ran out of oil. It does look like that, but it's not. Although, because with the engine, you have the aluminum. Usually they make the connecting rod out of aluminum. There's no bearing. It's just aluminum with the connecting rod. When the engine gets hot, that's the steel or cast. Then you'll get transfer. But this is all steel cast. But as a bearing, it's not a very good bearing surface. Like, that's why on engine crankshafts, you know, like a cast crankshaft, there's some kind of a Babbitt or a bearing, Babbitt style bearing, replaceable, and you will see that. If a bearing journal gets hot, you'll see transfer, which is kind of what's supposed to happen, because it sometimes if you have that transfer, I mean, sometimes it kills the crank, but sometimes it might only damage the crank, and it can be polished out and cut 10, 20 thousandths. Connecting rod, if it survives, it could be replaced. Bearing gets thrown away. In this case, there's no bearing. And cast behaves weird. You know, cast with cast and steel. It may not even be, what's weird is, I mean, it's most likely dirt and debris getting in, but not necessarily, because cast like this, like when I was grinding the outside, cast is very dirty. There's sand castings and the kind of iron that they used back then. I'm not saying it was bad or anything, but on bearing surfaces that are getting hot, the cast has voids, there's weak spots. All it takes is a little tiny piece of cast or sand in the casting or shit in the casting. And when the thing is spinning a cast on cast like that, there's no place for that little piece of shit to go other than to score the daylights out of everything. It can't embed itself into anything. There's no bearing, soft bearing surface for things to get embedded into. And so it just whips around. And it may not even been like, it's probably just got hot. They weren't oiling it and it started coming apart. So is that a transmission or transfer? It's basically, hey David, it's a power transfer transmission system. It's an actual transmission system, transmitting and transferring the power. So it's multiple gears and pulleys. And you have your back gears basically in the back, and you have your forward gears. And depending on which ones you choose. And that red lever that you see on the top, that's really neat. So there's a bull gear inside the spindle underneath the cones. There's a whole nother set of gears in there. I need to lubricate them. And there's a pin that you pull out or push in. It's called a bull gear and a bull pin. And it does two things, because when you pull over that top red handle and those two gears come down, you can transfer right to the chuck on the spindle. You can transfer the pulley that's connected to the engine and have direct drive from the engine. Or you can use the back gears. Or if you pull that handle forward and the two gears come down, you pull the pin or push the pin in, I think, and the whole system will lock up. It will not move. And then you can remove the chuck or install a chuck, and you can tap, because you can bring the stock in from the side, the right-hand side, slide it over, and you could put a center on it, and then you assemble your tap. You put the workpiece into the chuck. You get everything on the same axis. You apply a little bit of pressure, and you start tapping. So, and it really doesn't matter what you tap, because I have a 4-jaw chuck, so you could lock whatever you want into the chuck as long as it fits, even if it's a weird shape, and you can center tap in a straight line with that system. And that was in 1920. So, like, they knew what they were doing. Like, they really did. Like, you would think that this would be stuff that would have come later. No, it came at the beginning of our Industrial Revolution over 100 years ago. It's just that there's more knobs and bells and whistles, and you can electronically control it today and automate it. But they knew what the hell they would do it. It's amazing. I wouldn't have thought to have seen that on something from 1920. It hasn't, and it didn't even change really forever. Like, it didn't change until there are lathes made in the 80s that still have that feature in that way. Wait. What the hell? I ate all up. Yeah. That's what happens to shit. Hey, Brett goes, hey, I recognize that die grinder. Ingersoll Rand IR301 with a Roll-Lock Scotch-Brite wheel. No, that was a Makita. That little die grind, that's a Makita. And I have the separate tool. It's mounted in the vise just to hold it. A speed controller, right? Because that one just doesn't have it on there. But I have a separate nice speed controller. So, and it's nice too because it actually makes the tool run under load, so it won't stall. Yeah, a geezer. Yeah, David, it's an old geezer. It's like me. Brett goes, motor from high efficiency front load washer, DC rectified. Yeah. A lot of people use stuff like that. There was, because a lot of the earlier lathes, even in the 60s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, like you bought some of the Craftsmans or the Atlases, they sold it without a motor. Like you had to supply your own motor. So people took washer machine motors or whatever. And like Ken said, like you could put a variable frequency drive on it later on. If I deem it to be worthy, someday down the road, good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, I'll put a variable frequency drive, and then you could run it at any speed you want. You don't have to mess with pulleys. And then I can also put a VRO on it, a digital readout on it. And then, the other thing that it is missing is it's missing a carriage stop. So probably one of the first things I'll have to make is some kind of carriage stop because I'm a noob. And, I haven't turned one of those wheels since I was working with the Greeks. And when I was, 20, 18, 19? I don't even remember. I haven't turned one of those handles. You don't want to crash the machine. That's probably how the vise broke, right? Somebody crashed it, or they were trying to put the wrong tool holder in or something. I don't know, but they broke it somehow. So compound rest, Brett goes, yeah. David says, John, I don't know if on your end I'm getting double audio tracks. Well, you should be okay now. You'll get it when I'm running through pictures and stuff. When I'm running through that, you'll hear some of it. Especially when I'm playing. But now it should be okay. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the hardware and the software. There's money in this machine, but there's not enough money to solve all those problems, It costs too much, Bravo goes, man, my milling machine gets used more than my entire collection of 10 millimeter sockets and wrenches. I was totally surprised how often I'd use it after putting it. Yeah, of course. Just this past year, there's been a number of opportunities that if I had even a simple lathe like this, I could have used it. And then you think to use it more because you realize that you have the capability of these tools. And even if you're a novice, you've used them a bunch of times and you start to realize that there are even more things you can do. And then you actually look for stuff like that because you're like, oh, I get to use my lathe in my mill press today, Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's a hobby in itself. Oh, there's Mick. See, Robert says, it's up to you if you want to use the 3-in-1 machine oil to keep it oiled up. The 3-in-1. Yeah, I've got a number of oils out there. Mick says, hi. Robert goes, hello, Mick. And he goes, all right, Robert. Let's see what time is it. Now that Mick's on, I'm about ready to sign off anyway. We're at 1 hour and 30 minutes. So that's usually my run. But yeah, just fun stuff in between doing everything else. This week, I've got Big Mike's Thrasher to go through. I want to get started on that. I got Contractor Mike, the broken mystery muffler on the Echo backpack. And I got to put the cable on the little cub, right? The scab mower. It's not it looks like, I call it the scab because it's like a mini scat, So I got that to do, and I got Mini Mike, it's a little project to work on for him. Plus I have the cable I need to put on his go-kart. But I want to do his little motor first so he can make some money on that. So that's 4 things right there. And then somewhere in between that, I got my own projects to work on and this lathe. Yeah, I'm shot. I don't even know what I'm saying right now. That's how tired I am. I don't think I'm going to go back to work, though, on it tonight. I think I'm done. Tomorrow's Sunday. I'll noodle around with the crank a little bit. Crank. I keep saying that. The spindle. You know I'm a motorhead if I keep calling the spindle a crank. You know, I'm a motorhead is what I really am. You know, that's one of my first loves is engines. I still remember my brother David left. He's on here now. He left this horizontal motor from something in the basement. And then he went into the military for a little while, whatever the hell else he disappeared to. And I don't know, what was it, about 10? And I took it apart and I put it back together. It was a really cool cast iron motor. It's like, you know, single longer, small piston. The carburetor died and it got lost. And I remember I put it back together again. And at some point I wanted to like mash it onto a mini bike frame. So I had to come up with a carburetor. So I made an adapter plate, hogged it out of aluminum because aluminum is soft. And with basic tools, I made a plate. I found a carburetor somewhere from something and I bolted everything on. And even before I had a clutch on it, I wrapped the chain around the pulley. I got it all running, tuned it all up. To stop it, you had to shut the motor. Fortunately, it wasn't a big motor, so you had to put your feet out and try to stop the thing. And eventually it ate through the pulley, and then I got a clutch for it and put that on there. And I used it for a while, and I remember it must have been like, oh God, it was like maybe 12 at that point. But I'd started fooling around with it. He showed me how to put plugs in a Volkswagen, and I was all about 9 or 10. I remember that. I was in the garage. He backed it in. Dave, you remember that Volkswagen? I remember what color it was. Was it white? He had another one, I think it was blue or something. Something like that. Roxy says hi. And he goes, what blind video? This is Joe Z. He goes, hey, Arch and crew, just making a quick stop to see what's up. I watched your blind video. What blind video? Roxy goes, Roxy says hi too. Robert says, we had a multi-speed 240-volt drill press where I used to work. Yeah, those are nice. Yeah, there's a lot of power in that. Yeah. It's efficient too. There's one for sale right now. It's set up like that. It's a big, gigantic work press. Multi-speed, 220 and 110 variable speed as well. It's got a speed control built into it. The big heavy machine somebody's got. There's a lot of good stuff out there, and the prices have come down. The lathe, the same lathe in Connecticut that Mike showed me today, $250 maybe, and it looks like it's all there, including the covers and everything. It's all there. With a different motor mount. The motor stands up high on a stanchion and really high. Like here's the lathe here and the motor's like way up here and it's this big like 4-inch, mast. They were underneath. They were swung. Sometimes they would mount the motor on the wall and you'd push the machine up and that was kind of so heavy it wasn't going to go anywhere. And then the strap came down, the belt came down. That was another way they did it. Remember now, this is early. This is early stuff. All right, I'm out of here, fellas. It's an hour and a half. Everybody, thanks for stopping in. I'm trying to do just an hour and a half. And plus, I'm too tired to continue to really hang out anyway. I'm going to go put my feet up, grab another slice of pizza, go play with the cats for a little while, put them to bed, make sure the dog is all right. The dog and the 4 cats. It's like a zoo in there now. They turned it into a zoo. Now they're thinking, I told them this would happen. I don't know if I want to sell them now. They're all so cute. Yeah, I'm like, that's why I haven't touched them, really. Now they're starting to touch me. I go into the room and they come over to me now, right? The little squirts with the blue eyes. Yeah, take one. Have you picked one up yet? I'm like, I picked them up a couple of times. You know, it was good hanging out with you fellas. I just wanted to make sure I stopped in, even though I'm tired. I figured an hour and a half is better than nothing and not stopping in. And just to see what everybody was up to and to share a little bit about, some of the craziness stuff that's going on. It's going to be a busy week. And everybody out there, enjoy the weather. It's nice. It's going to start getting muggy, hot, and humid. If it isn't already in some of the places where you guys live. But the snow is long gone, right? This is still rainy season here. And it's just good to be outside, seeing the green, cutting the lawn, smelling the lawn. I was doing a little lawn cutting today. Working on machines again. I'll see you guys later.